Hello, how's it going? Thanks for sticking around on Sunday. I'm Gabe Barcia, Colombo. I go by Gabe BC, and I'm going to talk about an artwork that I made. I'm an artist and a professor at NYU, the ITP program, Interactive Telecommunications program. So ever since I was a child, I've been obsessed with memorialization. This is actually a video of me as a 10-year-old mummifying my little sister Mia. So I was kind of a strange child, as you can tell here. But I've always been fascinated by different cultures' uses of memorialization, how we capture a life, how we tell someone's life story over time and kind of capture this for the ages. And I was doing a lot of research on this at one point in my artistic career, thinking about the Egyptians in the Book of the Dead, these books that were kind of customly created for people as they were moving on to the afterlife that would demonstrate their lives and also have instructions for the afterlife. And I was thinking about how we kind of are doing this all the time ourselves these days. We're actually acting as our own memorialists. We're creating living documents of our lives. But what happens to these living documents after we die? Who owns these living documents? Are they owned by a corporation? Do we actually control our own stories? And how accurate are these stories depicting our own lives online through social media? And I had these very strange interactions that were happening back, around this time. I had a friend who wished another friend happy birthday and wrote YOLO, which means you only live once. But they didn't know that this person had already died when they wrote this. So you got an alert saying, oh, it's this person's birthday. So I'm going to go and say happy birthday. But the person had already passed away. Or a DJ friend of mine who had passed away, but was still tweeting after he died because he had set up auto tweets to continue on. So it's this sort of painful reminder. And I'm sure some of you have had this experience where you see a reminder of someone who's passed away. It's been kept online. It's reminding you over and over again of this practice of death. And so I think this is changing the way our society views death. So I decided to apply for a grant from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art to create a fictional company called the Hereafter Institute that was going to help people deal with their digital afterlives. So it's a fictional company. I started this company. It's kind of somewhere between a funeral home and an art installation in some way. And I conducted private tours for people that wanted to come to the museum and experience these memorials that I created for very real people that have died. So all the people you see in this are actually real people. It's not like we've invented this, and they're all real memorials. But they're thinking about how we can preserve this data going forward. So this is the trailer for the Hereafter Institute.
What happens to your digital presence after you die? Your personal data, memories, and history. Our goal at the Hereafter Institute is to provide a number of solutions and memorials for the preservation of your digital self. Our facilities are designed with the latest technology, from data reconstruction and preservation to full-body 3D scanning and memory reenactment. We pride ourselves on offering a unique experience tailored to each individual, and our specialists are trained to help you make the difficult decision about what to leave behind. You are invited to a consultation with a Hereafter specialist to discuss the arrangements of your digital afterlife. How do you want to be remembered?
So this is the trailer that went up on LACMA's website. Nobody knew what was going on at all when they signed up to be part of this art project. People had to sign up and kind of acknowledge a certain number of rights when they signed up. And then you would come to the museum, and I had hired 10 different actors to portray Hereafter Institute specialists. So they would take you on a one-on-one tour throughout the museum to see these different artworks that I created for people who had passed away. So at first you would meet with them and they would ask you questions about your digital habits. They would ask you, do you use online banking? Do you go on dates online? Where do you keep your photos? And they would kind of create a portfolio of you, a digital imprint of you. They would take a 3D body scan of you. So they actually put you on a scanner. They would 3D scan your body. And then you went on this tour with the specialist who would show you these different memorials that were possible for you to kind of purchase, although you couldn't really buy them at the art show itself. And so I'm going to show you these different memorials today. But it was a very personal journey that you went on. It was very intimate. The first was a memorial that I made for my grandfather. This is my grandfather who passed away in 1995, Jose Rubia Barcia. He was exiled from Spain during the Spanish Civil War for writing anti-Franco sentiments in the newspapers. And I created a digital version of him. So this is an avatar that I created based on photographs. Then I went and 3D modeled his backyard that I used to spend a lot of time in as a child. He was a poet, so I have actual recordings of his voice, but we don't know what to do with these recordings. We just have them. So I made a virtual reality simulation where I could go visit my deceased grandfather. in his backyard. And I did this also for 3 other individuals who had passed away that agreed to be part of this project. So this is the Hereafter life. This is one portion of the Hereafter Institute. And the idea with this is that it's a living memorial. You could go back and visit people as avatars in different spaces and kind of bring them back to life in some way. So this is his backyard, and you would hear a story about him, and you'd also hear his poetry. And with this piece, I didn't want to make it sort of this uncanny valley where you're experiencing face-to-face interactions with people, because as we know how that goes, it doesn't work out well. I want to just sort of like step into a memory and experience the person through that memory as sort of a pseudo-documentary of that person's life. But it was very strange to kind of reconstruct someone digitally. In fact, that process was actually more interesting maybe than the final output, like being able to reconstruct someone's life through their data and their imagery. This is another friend of mine whose aunt was an art collector, so we had our art collections in front of this kind of vast landscape. So that was the first portion you experienced of the Hereafter Institute. This is my mother experiencing seeing her father again moving for the first time in 15 years after he passed away. The second part, I created a series of one-of-a-kind custom vinyl records. So I had a friend whose brother was in an accident and he passed away, but he left a very long Facebook legacy online. And I was thinking about, well, what happens to his stories after he dies? Where's this journal of all of his memories go? Is it owned by Meta now? Is Facebook own these memories of someone? And so what I did was I took those memories, those text memories, and converted them into audio tones. So basically the data of the text, converting it into bits and audio tones, kind of like how a modem works. You know the sound of the modem. It's a process called frequency shift keying. And then I etched these into custom vinyl records and created a memorial where you could experience people's lives through their text data. This is called Monument. And you would go and place a record on this monument piece, which would then decode their data so you could actually live it out again on the front of the monument. So you would see everyone's posts. This is Hernando's posts. All of his posts from his life that he left online, then expressed on the front of the record player. And the tones that you're hearing are not the tones of the data. They're actually sentiment analysis tones based on the posts themselves. The data sounds like a modem. It sounds very harsh, and I didn't want this piece to sound super harsh. It's supposed to be sort of a thought-reflecting piece. You can step in here and read someone's memories over again, kind of again, bringing them back to life in different ways. So I ran the posts themselves through sentiment analysis and then determined different minor or major keys depending on if the sentiment was positive, neutral, or negative in the posts. So this allowed you to kind of bring this person back to life again, or actually reclaim their text data as a physical artifact. And the goal would be maybe even hundreds of years from now, if you found this disc, you could decode it and re-experience this person's life, even when Facebook is no longer here or we have no record of these lives anymore. For the final portion of the tour, you were on your own. You went into this room alone. You were being guided by this tour guide. And what you ended up doing unknowingly was walking into your own funeral. And what we had done before you got there was we had basically taken all the data we could find about each person that visited the Hereafter Institute and wrote a funeral procession for you, including an actor.
Lucy was a beloved friend, daughter, and partner. Our thoughts go out to her loved ones on this day, including Fiona Leaf.
So these are the actual person's family members, which we found your data of online. And then we had what was called a viewing of the data, which we represented all your data in the same way that we did it for the record player shown to you. So these are all of this person's tweets, their posts. We've gathered it all from that beginning when you accepted being part of this institute. And then you saw yourself, it kind of glitched and broke down, and you would actually see yourself appear as a 3D model, which we had taken from the 3D scan we took of you about 20 minutes earlier, walking off into the sunset. And this was sort of the end of the piece. And it caused a very strange out-of-body experience to have this very intimate experience with your digital avatar walking away from you. So this was the Hereafter Institute, and it caused a bit of chaos at the museum. Some people wanted to purchase this as an actual service. I actually ended up meeting with Mount Sinai Funeral Home after this about incorporating a lot of this into the actual funeral home. They wanted specifically to figure out how to take people's data and put it into physical objects, because they said that's the hardest part, is how do you actually memorialize some of this data? And so hopefully, if anything from this whole talk, maybe it just makes you think a little bit about the impermanence of data, how much data represents you as your actual personality, and maybe a little bit of how you want to be remembered as well. So thank you. That's the Hereafter Life.